You woke up this morning. You didn't run a marathon, you didn't have a hard conversation, you didn't move furniture or work a double shift. You just existed. Maybe you scrolled for a while, made coffee, sat on the couch, looked at your phone, looked at the ceiling, looked at your phone again, and by 2 in the afternoon, you were exhausted. Not a little tired, exhausted. The kind of tired that lives behind your eyes, the kind that makes even small things feel heavy, the kind that no amount of sleep seems to fix. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice said, "What's wrong with me? I haven't even done anything." I want to spend the next 30 minutes answering that question. Because here's what nobody told you. Doing nothing is not the same as resting. And the exhaustion you feel, the one that doesn't make sense on paper, is one of the most real, most documented, most misunderstood forms of mental fatigue that exists. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why you feel this way. Not in a vague, inspirational way, in a specific way. A way that finally makes sense of something you've been carrying around for a long time. Stay with me. Let me describe your day, or at least a version of it that might feel familiar. You wake up, and the first thing you do is reach for your phone. Not because you want to, not because there's something you're excited to see, but because the silence feels loud. You check your messages, your email, the news, social media, back to messages. Nothing urgent, nothing important, but somehow 20 minutes passed. You get up, make breakfast maybe, or skip it, start a task you've been meaning to do, work on it for about 8 minutes, stop, pick up your phone again. You have 3 tabs open on your laptop that you've been meaning to get to, a text you started typing yesterday and never sent, a form you need to fill out that's been sitting there for 2 weeks, and all of it is taking up space somewhere in the back of your head, even when you're doing nothing, especially when you're doing nothing. By evening, you feel guilty. You didn't do the thing you were supposed to do. You didn't exercise, you didn't call back the person you've been avoiding, you didn't make any progress on anything. And now it's too late to start. So you tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. And you watch something or scroll something and eventually fall asleep and wake up and do it again. Does any part of that sound familiar? I'm not asking to make you feel seen in a flattering way. I'm asking because what I just described is not laziness. It is not a character flaw. It is not a sign that you're falling apart. It is the experience of a brain that is working extraordinarily hard on things you cannot see. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about. We have a very specific story in America about what exhaustion is supposed to look like. It looks like someone who worked 16-hour days, ran a company, raised 3 kids, went through something undeniably hard. If that's you, you're allowed to be tired. But if you just sat at home and watched TV, you should be fine. That story is wrong, and believing it is making things worse. Here's what the science actually shows. Your brain uses approximately 20% of your body's total energy. 20% for an organ that makes up roughly 2% of your body weight. That means your brain is the most expensive thing you run. And here's the part nobody talks about. Your brain does not stop working when you stop working. When you're lying on the couch, your brain is running what neuroscientists call the default mode network, a system that activates when you're not focused on a task. It processes memory, simulates future scenarios, replays past conversations, monitors social information, tries to make sense of unresolved things. So when you're doing nothing, your brain is doing everything. It's replaying the conversation you had with your coworker on Tuesday. It's running simulations of the conversation you haven't had yet. It's monitoring that unopened email in the background. It's holding the 3 things you said you'd do and haven't done. None of this feels like thinking. You're not consciously aware of most of it, but your brain is burning through energy doing it. And by 2 in the afternoon, you're running on empty. Not because you're lazy, because you've been running a very expensive engine in a very quiet room and calling it rest. In 1988, a psychologist named John Sweller introduced a concept called cognitive load theory. The idea is simple.
Your brain has a limited amount of mental bandwidth, a working memory, a processing capacity. When that capacity gets overwhelmed, thinking slows, decision-making degrades, creativity disappears, and fatigue sets in. Now here's the part that matters for you. Cognitive load isn't just created by hard problems, it's created by open loops. An open loop is anything your brain is tracking that hasn't been resolved. The email you haven't answered, the decision you haven't made, the text you read but didn't reply to, the thing you said you'd do that you haven't done. Each one of those is an open loop, and your brain, by design, cannot fully ignore them. It keeps them active in the background, using processing power, consuming energy, taking up space. Psychologist David Allen called this the Zeigarnik Effect, the brain's tendency to fixate on incomplete tasks more than completed ones. You finish something, your brain lets it go. You leave something unfinished, your brain holds it. Most people in modern life are walking around with dozens of open loops, maybe hundreds. Unread messages, unfinished projects, unsaid things, unresolved relationships, unmade decisions, unprocessed emotions. Every single one of those is sitting in your mental RAM, running in the background, costing you energy you can't see leaving. This is why you feel tired by afternoon, even when you sat still all morning. You weren't resting, you were maintaining.
There's another form of exhaustion that's even harder to see. Psychologist Arlie Hochschild called it emotional labor. She defined it as the management of feeling to fulfill the emotional requirements of a job, or a relationship, or a social situation. In plain language, it's the energy you spend making sure other people feel okay. It's the smile when you don't feel like smiling, the patience when you're out of it, the "I'm fine" when you're not, the performance of being okay in front of people who need you to be okay. Most people do this constantly, at work, with family, with friends, sometimes even alone, performing okayness for a version of yourself you're trying to convince. And here's what Hochschild found. Emotional labor is labor. It costs energy, real metabolic neurological energy, the same kind of energy you use to carry boxes or solve math problems. It just doesn't look like anything from the outside. So when you come home from a day where you held it together in meetings, navigated a difficult conversation, smiled at the right moments, said the diplomatic thing instead of the honest thing, you didn't do nothing. You worked. You just worked in a way nobody counts, including you. This is the part I want you to pay the closest attention to. Your nervous system has two primary states. The first is called sympathetic activation. You probably know it as fight or flight. This is your brain's emergency mode, activated when it detects a threat. Heart rate up, breathing shallow, muscles ready. The second is called parasympathetic activation, rest and digest. This is the state where your body repairs itself, where real rest happens, where digestion works properly, where your immune system does its job. The problem, and this is the problem, is that your nervous system was designed for a world with clear threats. A predator appears, sympathetic activates. The predator leaves, parasympathetic restores. But in modern life, the threats never fully leave. The news doesn't stop. The notifications don't stop. The financial stress doesn't stop. The social comparison doesn't stop. The background hum of things being not quite right doesn't stop. So your nervous system stays in a low-grade sympathetic state, not full panic, not an emergency, just elevated, alert, braced. Researchers call this allostatic load, the cumulative wear on the body and brain from chronic, low-level stress. And the physiological cost is real. Elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep architecture, impaired prefrontal function, reduced emotional regulation. In plain language, your brain is running in a state that was designed for emergencies as a baseline, and that is profoundly exhausting, even when you're lying still, even when nothing is happening,
even when by every external measure you should be fine.
I want to stop here for a moment because I'm aware that some of you aren't just watching this out of intellectual curiosity. You're watching this because you're tired. Not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep fixes, the kind that's been sitting with you for a while, months maybe, or longer. And you've probably tried to explain it to someone, maybe a friend, maybe a partner, maybe a doctor. And what you got back was some version of, but you're not doing that much. What do you have to be tired about? And because you couldn't find a good answer, because you couldn't point to the thing, some part of you started to believe them, started to think, maybe I'm just weak, maybe I'm just not built for this, maybe everyone else is handling it fine, and I'm the one falling behind. I want to say something clearly. You are not weak. You are not failing. You are not lazy. You are not dramatic. You are a human being running an extraordinarily complex system, your mind, in conditions it was never designed for. And you've been doing it without anyone telling you what it's actually costing you. That ends today.
So what do you do with this? I'm not going to give you a 10-step productivity system. I'm not going to tell you to meditate for 20 minutes every morning if you never meditated a day in your life. I want to give you something smaller and more honest. First, name your open loops. Take 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, and write down everything that's sitting in your head unresolved. Every task, every unsaid thing, every decision you've been avoiding. You don't have to solve them. You just have to write them down. Here's why this works. When something moves from your head to a list, your brain gets a partial signal that it's been handled. The loop doesn't close completely, but the vigilance reduces. The background hum quiets. This is the single cheapest intervention for cognitive load reduction that exists, and almost nobody does it. Second, understand that you need more than sleep. Sleep researcher Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith identified 7 distinct types of rest that human beings need: physical, mental, emotional, social, sensory, creative, spiritual. Most people only ever try to address physical rest by sleeping more. But if your exhaustion is primarily cognitive, driven by open loops and mental labor, then sleep alone cannot fix it. What mental rest looks like? Periods of genuine non-stimulation. Not scrolling, not podcasts, not TV. Just quiet. Even 5 minutes. Even uncomfortable minutes. What emotional rest looks like? One relationship where you don't have to manage yourself, where you can say what's actually true, where the performance stops. These don't require huge changes. They require small, specific choices made repeatedly over time. Third, and this is the hardest one, let your nervous system know that the threat is not constant. This doesn't happen through willpower. It happens through the body. Slow, extended exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Cold water on the face triggers the dive reflex and drops heart rate. Physical movement metabolizes stress hormones in a way that thinking about stress cannot. Your brain learns safety not from being convinced, but from being shown over and over in small ways that it is okay to come down.
At the beginning of this video, I asked you a question. What's wrong with me? I haven't even done anything. Now you know the answer. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain has been working quietly, invisibly, constantly on a load that most people never stop to measure. You've been maintaining open loops and performing okayness and running a nervous system that never fully received the signal to rest. And you call the resulting exhaustion a character flaw. It isn't. It's what happens when a system is asked to operate beyond its design parameters for a long time without maintenance. The question isn't what's wrong with you. The question is, what would it feel like to actually rest? Not just to sleep, not just to stop moving, to genuinely, physiologically, neurologically rest. I think most of you don't actually know the answer to that because it's been so long. That's what I want for you. Not productivity, not optimization, not a better morning routine. Rest, real rest, the kind your body already knows how to have if you give it the conditions. In the next video in this series, I'm going to talk about something that took me a long time to understand. Why your brain refuses to switch off, even on weekends, even on vacation, even when you desperately want it to. There's a specific neurological reason for this, and understanding it changes how you approach rest entirely. If that's something you need, subscribe, because it's coming soon. Before you go, I want to ask you one thing. Not for me, for yourself. What's one word that describes how you've been feeling lately? Not how you're supposed to feel, not how you'd answer if someone asked at work. One honest word. Leave it in the comments. You don't have to explain it, just one word. I read every single one.